God is everywhere. That all-pervading aspect of God is Brahman. And then the second aspect of God is his localized aspect, where he resides in everybody's hearts, noting their karmas, keeping an account, giving the results. So, this localized presence of the Lord in everybody's heart, this is called Paramatma. And the third is when the Lord descends as an avatar in his personal form and manifests divine pastimes. So, this avatari form of God, the personal form of God, is called Bhagavan. So, Bhagavan is the same as Paramatma and Brahman, but more Shaktis are manifesting in that form. This Brahma, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. If we can understand these three different aspects of God, we will realize the unity in the apparently different forms of worship and traditions of worship that are prevalent around the world. The goal of this family camp is to help us move ahead in our devotion and to absorb our minds in God. So, the more we understand God, the more our love for Him will increase. As you all have heard from me over and over again, when you come to know the value of an object is so much, your love for it increases to the same extent. So, if we wish to move ahead in our devotion, we must also take the Tattva Gyan, scriptural knowledge, very seriously. Very often, aspirants, they are only inclined to bhajan and they consider lectures to be frivolous. However, that's not the case. Kripaluji Maharaj used to say again and again that the more you truly understand Tattva Gyan, the more you will move ahead on this path. So, this is a beautiful verse to start with. You see, the scriptural knowledge is vast and immense. To explain that simply is a tremendous art. Kripaluji Maharaj has distilled from the whole scriptural knowledge these 100 verses in which he has expressed the philosophy of divine love. And he calls it Bhakti Shatak, or 100 verses, 100 aphorisms on Bhakti. We are starting with the 21st in this retreat, and it's a tremendous launching point. He says here that the Supreme Lord has got three forms: Brahma, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, as explained by Ved Vyas. Why Ved Vyas? Because in the Srimad Bhagavat Mahapuran, Ved Vyas has written a verse. I believe it is the first canto, second chapter, 11th verse. Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. He says the tattvajñas, the knowers of spiritual truths, have explained that the one supreme divine entity without a second, there is one supreme divine entity. Ekameva dvitiyam brahma, ekam satvipra bahudha vadanti, ekam santam bahudha kalpayanti. That supreme divine entity manifests in this world in three forms: Brahma, which in English we express as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So what is Brahman? Brahma is that aspect of God which is all-pervading. We all in our Hindu philosophy accept that God is everywhere. One drunkard, he said to another drunkard, "I'll give you 2 bottles if you can tell me where God is." The second drunkard told the first one, "I'll give you 4 bottles if you can explain me where God is not." So God is everywhere. I am reminded of the student who went to his teacher and said, "You know, God lives in our restroom." The teacher said, "How come God lives in your restroom? Who told you that?" He said, "My mother." "How come your mother said that?" "Every time my father is in the restroom, my mother screams, 'Oh God, when will you come out?'" So, God is everywhere. That all-pervading aspect of God is Brahman. And then the second aspect of God is his localized aspect, where he resides in everybody's hearts, noting their karmas, keeping an account, giving the results. So this localized presence of the Lord in everybody's heart, this is called Paramatma. He is the same Brahman, but he is discharging a different function. And the third is when the Lord descends as an avatar in his personal form and manifests divine pastimes. So this avatari form of God, the personal form of God, is called Bhagavan. So Bhagavan is the same as Paramatma and Brahman, but more Shaktis are manifesting in that form. This Brahma, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. If we can understand these 3 different aspects of God, we will realize the unity in the apparently different forms of worship and traditions of worship that are prevalent around the world. You have some people who worship God as light. You have yogis who worship God within. And you have devotees who worship the avatar. And everybody seems to say that I am right and everybody else is wrong. So there is so much of conflict and strife that goes on. Now, Vedavyas says that all these 3 are right. It is said the sign of a refined intellect is that it can hold apparently contradictory viewpoints at the same time. So these are contradictory viewpoints. God is everywhere. He's in our heart. He takes the avatar. The Vedavyas says, you understand God in this perspective, then you will realize that the Jnanis are also worshipping the same God, the yogis are also worshipping the same God, and the devotees of Ram and Krishna are also worshipping the same God. So how do you realize the distinction between these? It is like this. Supposing you were standing on a railway track and a train was coming from far at night time. You see the train and it seems like a light is approaching. That huge mass of tens of thousands of tons of steel and iron seems like a light. And when the train comes closer, at that time you see, oh, there's a shimmering form attached to it. Finally, when the train comes and stands on the platform, then you say, oh, this is the Coromandel Express. Now I can see S1, S2, A1, A2. So the train, when viewed from far, was like a light. When viewed from closer, it had a shimmering form. And when it came and stood there, you could see it as it was. Similarly, when you realize God from far, He seems like just a light. And you realize Him from closer, you realize that He's discharging so many functions sitting within us. He is the maintainer of the universe. So He's got His own office work that He is doing, sitting in everybody's hearts. Because He has to note the karmas, He has to keep an account, He has to give the results at the proper time. And He does this without any paperwork. He's got a paperless office in there. But then, in order to share loving pastimes with His devotees, He also manifests in His personal form. Now, some people say God cannot have a personal form. God is only light. What do you do about that? This moment you say only, you have to be a little skeptical. That are we now becoming bigoted and rigid? Because God is infinite. He's got infinite powers, infinite capabilities, infinite aspects to His personality. He has got infinite devotees. He's got infinite temples in infinite universes. He performs infinite pastimes. So for that infinite God, if we say He doesn't have the power to take on a form, then God is really a miserable creature, because we have the power to take on a form and God doesn't have the power. Then He's less than us. So Tulsidayasti says, Hari Maya Vasha Jagat Brahmahi Tinahi Kahat Kachu Aghatit Nahi Jin Krita Maha Moha Madapana Tin Kar Kaha Kariya Nahi Kana. He says that, look, the souls in this world are in the three gunas. So in the three gunas, they are sometimes becoming sattvic, sometimes rajasic, sometimes tamasic. Sometimes they seem so decent, dignified, gentlemanly, ladylike. And the very next moment, they seem all fired up and gung-ho about their materialistic aspirations. This is the Rajogun. And then at the next moment, they seem to have chemical addictions and all kinds of vices, and they are angry and troublesome. Now, Tamogun is dominant. So the same person is rotating between the three gunas. That is because we are all under Maya. Until Maya departs, we are at its whims. So any materialistic soul can say anything. Now people tell me, Swamiji, such and such person says that Radha is not a form of God. I say, congratulations. I am not obliged to answer to everyone. The scriptures say, when an elephant comes into the village, the dogs start barking. Now does the elephant say, why are you barking at me? If the elephant starts going after every dog that is barking, people will say, what kind of elephant is this? So the elephant just continues to walk in its naturality, undisturbed. In the same way, people will keep on saying varieties of things. But here, through the scriptures, through logic, and through worldly examples, we want to deepen our understanding of God. And understanding means that it remains with us. Not that after 15 days again the knowledge evaporates. That is why we must let this concept sink in. The three aspects of the one God. The Srimad Bhagavat Mahapuran says, Chayastvisham mityavadharitam pura tatah shaririti vibhavita kritam vibhur vibhakta vayavam pumaniti munnarada ityabodhisa. Once, Naradji was coming to Dwarka. So people saw him from far and said, there's a light in the sky which is approaching us. And then when he came closer, then they said, oh, there's a shimmering form out there. And when he landed, then they said, oh, he's Naradji. Like it's a bird, it's a plane, no, it's Superman. So they say, oh, he's Naradji. Now, Naradji, when he was far, was appearing like light. In the same way, when your perception of God is from very far, you only know he's a light. And when you perceive him from closer, say, my God, he's got other aspects to his personality as well. And when you perceive him real close, then you say, wow, he's perfect and complete. He's not only impersonal, he's not only formless, he's also got a dynamic and complete personality. So this personal aspect of God, you come to know through bhakti. Kripaluji Maharaj is going to elaborate. When Yuri Gagarin, the Russian astronaut, I believe he was the first one to go into space. When he returned, he said, people think there is God in space outside. But I have been there and I am telling you there is no God. So some of the people have this religious understanding. They accept that God is a creator. But they believe he created the world. And he's outside the world. He's looking, what's happening in my world now? That is one understanding of God. However, the Vedas say, not only did he create the world, he pervaded his whole creation as well. Eko deva sarvabhuteshu gudha sarvavyapi sarvabhutantaratma. So sarvavyapi God is everywhere. Once a king asked a sadhu who had come to his court. He said, Sadhu, can you prove to me the existence of God? The sadhu said, it's a small matter, Your Majesty. Let a black cow be brought to your court. The king said, if it will help prove the existence of God, then why not? He asked his servants, bring a black cow. The black cow was brought. The sadhu said, let the cow be milked. The king instructed his servants, milk the cow. So when the milk was in the bucket, the sadhu said, O king, what is the color of the milk? The King said, it's white. What is the color of the cow? The king said, it's black. Oh, king, how did white milk come out of the black cow? The king said, Sadhu, are you crazy? It is not the skin that comes out as milk. It is what the cow has eaten that gets transformed in its body into milk. Sadhu said, in that case, whatever the cow ate in the last 1 week, let a little sample be brought here. The king again instructed, let's play along with this sadhu. He seems to have a screw loose in his head. Bring a little sample of what the cow had eaten. So they brought in one plate some green grass, some brown hay, some banana leaves, some chickpeas. The sadhu said, "O king, is this what the cow ate?" The king said, "Yes." "This got transformed into milk?" The king said, "Yes." "O king, is there anybody in your country that can transform grass and hay and chickpeas and banana peels into milk?" The king was silent. The sadhu said, "Your question was, who is God?" The answer is, God is He who has created this cow, which eats grass and creates milk for human consumption. No human being can do this. The creator of this cow is God. So, the king was silent. The answer was in front of him. The sadhu said, "O king, is there butter in this milk?" The king said, "Yes." The sadhu said, "Where is the butter?" The king said, "It is everywhere." The sadhu explained, just like the butter is everywhere in the milk, God as well is everywhere in this world. So that all-pervading form of God, our scriptures have repeated again and again. Tam durdarsham gudham anupravishtham guhahitam gahavareshtham puranam adhyatma yoga dhikamena devam matva dhiro harsha shoka ujahati Shvetashvatar Upanishad. The Vedas say this world is like a fierce jungle. It's a bhavatavi. And everywhere in this fierce jungle is the presence of God. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina matsthani sarva bhutani nachaham teshvavastitah. Arjun, Maya tatamidam sarvam. Whatever you see in this world, I am sitting within it. And that is why God is also smaller than the smallest thing. If He was not subtler than the subtlest, how would He pervade the subtlest thing? So if it's correct that God is sitting in every atom, then He must be smaller than the atom. And if it's correct that God is sitting in every electron and proton, then He must be smaller than the electrons and protons. And what about the Higgs bosons? Well, Higgs boson is also energized by God. So He is within the Higgs boson, the God particle as well. Now you say, if God is everywhere, why don't we perceive Him? 2 points. First point, He is everywhere, but He is not manifesting His Shaktis. So He is avyakt, and in other words, the Shaktis are all there, but they are all wound up. Just like a matchstick has got fire in it. Why is it not manifesting if there is fire? The fire is latent. It needs to be struck for it to reveal itself. The fire was there, but it was latent. Just like there is a seed of a banyan tree, and somebody says, this seed has got in it 150 branches and 400 aerial roots and 6,000 leaves and so many flowers. Say, what are you talking? One little seed? It has it all, but they are all latent. So in the same way, God is everywhere. It's a fact. But He is not manifesting those Shaktis of it. It doesn't mean that the Brahman is small and Bhagavan is big. If we say, Brahman is small and then Paramatma is bigger and Bhagavan is bigger, that would be an incorrect understanding. They are all one and they all have all the Shaktis, but they are in the latent form. So that's the first thing. And the second is the point we were discussing, that if He is everywhere and God is full of bliss, then we should experience that bliss. Just like take a glass of water, put 5 spoons of sugar in it, drink it. How is it? Sweet. You perceive the sugar in it? Yes. Take another glass, put 5 spoons of salt in it, drink it. How is it? Salty? Yes. The item that is in it came in your perception. Now, in the glass is God, who is an ocean of bliss. And we are drinking the water. We are not perceiving God. God is in every molecule that we are breathing in. Why are we not experiencing His bliss? God is impinging on all of our 5 senses, but His infinite bliss is not coming in our perception. What is the reason for that? He is everywhere, but He is divine. And the senses we have are material. So with the material senses, we are not being able to perceive Him. In other words, it's not just dependent on the object. It's also dependent upon the senses that perceive. Now let us say somebody has got jaundice, hepatitis, and you offer him wonderful sharbat and say, how is it? He says it's bitter. Bitter? How come it's bitter? Are you all right? Yes, I'm absolutely all right. Now, how come you are saying that this is bitter? I've got jaundice, and because of jaundice, the tongue has got spoilt. The sharbat is perfect, but the senses that perceive it have become defective. So similarly, God is divine, He will always remain divine. In order to perceive Him, all we need to do is to make our own senses divine. And those who have made their senses divine, like the saints, they are giving their experience. Siya Ramamaya Sab Jag Jani. They are saying we perceive God to be everywhere. Chit dekho tit shamamai hai. The gopis say, wherever we look, we find Sri Krishna. So we have to accept the verdict of the scriptures, which say, Isha vasamidam sarvam yat kincha jagatyan jagat. The Isha Upanishad says, the whole world is the veritable form of God. Purukha eve dagvam sarvam yad bhutam yaccha bhavyam utamritat vasyeshano yadannena tirohati. The scriptures say, Purusha evedam sarvam. Everywhere is the Supreme Purush. Sahasra shireka purukha sahasraksha sahasrapata sabhumigvam sarvatas pritva tyatishthad dashangulam. This mantra of the Purusha Suktam states, Sahasra shir, everywhere is God's head. Everywhere is God's feet. Everywhere is God's hands. Everywhere are God's eyes. So don't think you can do anything which God will not see. He is seeing everything. He is hearing everything. He is everywhere. And yet Dashanguli. What does that mean? That this material energy cannot touch him. He is everywhere and yet nirlipt, untouched, because he is 10 inches beyond creation. So that is the Dashanguli. Now look, within this body is our soul. And God is also there. And the body is made of Maya. So the material energy Maya, God and the soul are all in the same place. You talk about being separated from God. We are separated from God since endless lifetimes. Well, the fact is, we can never be separated from Him. He is eternally and incessantly with us. Why eternally with us? Because He is sitting inside us. Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam. Our soul is eternal because the eternal God sitting inside is granting it eternality. And our soul is sentient, conscious, because God is making it conscious. So if God was to leave our soul, our personality would cease to exist. Just like if the powerhouse switches off the energy, then there will be no power in all of Dallas. So in the same way, if God departs from our heart for a moment, we will cease to exist. The fact that we exist means God is with us since endless lifetimes. Plus, wherever we go in the world, God is there. So He is eternally and incessantly with us. And yet, we are searching for Him. Now, isn't that a paradox? It's like somebody has got the glasses on the nose and says, I have not seen my glasses in the last 5 days. If you find them, please let me know. Hari Baba, they are on your nose. Or somebody has a kanthi and says, I'm unable to locate my kanthi. Have you seen it lying anywhere? Or a lady has the baby in her lap. And she says, if my baby has gone running from this side, please inform me. So, in this way, God is with us, sitting inside us. And we are searching for Him. Where is God? Where is God? Where is God? And endless lifetimes have passed by. Yet we have not found Him. So what is separating us from Him is not any physical distance. It is only the lack of devotion, the lack of grace, the lack of proper consciousness. So our consciousness is separated from Him. When we say we have turned our backs, now how do you turn your back to somebody who's everywhere? The only way our back is turned is in our consciousness. All right? So, that all-pervading God is called Brahman. We have covered the first aspect of God. Now we will go into the second and third aspects.